All right, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my next upload, inshallah, for Islamic history. A journey begins, and so this is a part of just a update and an overview of what I've been doing and how I've been going around my first experience teaching Islamic history with critical with critical loyalty seminary. Sorry, I was zoned out there. Okay, so we hope to begin this journey in a very fast paced overview of Islamic history over time, and it's just going to be pretty much 1 century or one episode or one significant fact for 14 lessons across 14 centuries. And there's enough time to cover and interact with that, inshallah. And so we began the class by just clearly having a good understanding of history itself from our own perspective. And we settled on the idea that, Tarikh is the Arabic equivalent for history. And if you're listening to somebody who is passionate about hadith studies or engagement with the prophetic narrative and narration, and everything around it, it's an indication of time that serves for an accurate establishment of circumstances affecting the transmitters of tradition as well as its religious leaders, and that can include dates and birth and death and different things entirely. So pretty much personality centered towards arriving at a particular goal or verifying something. If you're looking at it from a Khaldunian, Ibn Khaldun sociologist, social scientist perspective, history refers to events that are peculiar to a particular age or race. In summary, so the main goal is just to understand that history is referring to factual events of the past, and for us, as Muslims, it takes a different dimension of trying to inform us towards something of a very important purpose. History cannot be seen as totally neutral or secular or totally devoid of a meaning in general, as it is commonplace in certain paradigms of learning today. And so, pretty much, we can think about a framework of history. And the way I choose to teach history, definitely for those of us who are thinking around being believers or continuously being on a path of belief and purposefulness of the world in place, it begins with reflection. For people who are Muslims in general, our number one Abrahamic document is a centerpiece and a cornerstone of our life, and that is the Quran. And it's a book that has historical facts that make at least a third of the book itself, centering around the experiences of the people of the past and our predecessors, and looking at us as people that are working in history and are defining the future for our own selves and future comrades of ours to come. And so I choose to adopt and share my teacher's framework of history, which can be divided into three, if any, depending on what paradigm you are. A lot of us are centered around one particular paradigm or one particular vision of history in general, and that is maybe just the Sirah or the story of the Prophet itself, and that is it. But when we look from a Quran centered perspective, it starts from the beginning of creation and the beginning of the nation builders, starting from the first parent of humanity, which we believe is Adam. And so it builds upon that and discusses history, the chronological events, if possible, if I believe they're chronological, at least of certain messengers that were sent to humanity and how they delivered their mandate and what was the responses and the circumstances and how the civilizations ended up. Another perspective of history is definitely the one I prefer best, which is centered around our persons today. The idea of being a community, a chosen community. Think of a particular Abrahamic group that believe they are the chosen people or things like that. Yes, we do have a perspective of the chosen community, and literally it's just basically the collection of a pattern from a previous generation of people who are given the mandate but may or may not have delivered fully, and now the mandate has been handed down to us. So the very idea of being the best community that has been raised for mankind to enjoin what is good and forbid what is wrong. Surah Al-Baqarah uses the word ummah twice, and then also another place where it says we've appointed you as a middle community, Ummatun Wasatan, so that you may be a witnesses upon mankind and that the messenger may be a witness to you. So it's empowering us as a mouthful with a mandate, and then that mandate comes with guidelines that we should fulfill, and of course there are repercussions when we choose to slack on it. And the example of the previous generation who are given that mandate, who are perfect examples to us, are the Jews, and the Quran ends up going through the stories of the Jews and giving us a valuable perspective of how they demonstrated the level of seriousness and commitment to the mandate itself, their weaknesses, their human frailties, so that we can see them as a model, as a template for success, as well as our weaknesses also. Therein, of course, the last example that cannot be missed is the framework of the Prophet himself, he being the walking Quran, and he being the vision and mission for the believers, the coming of the final revelation. Some people are trying to call it the final testament, but yeah, the final revelation for mankind, for everybody to follow, for people of the previous generations, or people who are attached to the previous generation and their legacy, to end up centering him as the perfect model of experience. And the 23 years of servitude he gave towards delivering the message, acting the message, demonstrating the efficacy of the message, going into nooks and crannies of different corners, different tribes, different nations. It provides an exemplary template for all of us to follow accordingly. So these are the three major frameworks, I would say, in general. Every other thing else that I touched upon had to focus on our character and our attitude towards history. Though, are we suffering from a Muslim dementia? And what is the cure? How have we, if we had a scorecard, how are we doing today in general? What explains the consequences of us being at the bottom of the table despite being a lot more? Are we truly students, devoted students of history, or are we simply people who are engaging with revelation just as a ritual, as a passing ritual, whereby it's not seeping into the corners of our hearts? And so that is essential for understanding, in my opinion, revelation. And also understanding Islamic history in general. Whether we should even call it Islamic history is even a question also, or just call it Muslim history. But understanding history for that is relevant to us entails engaging with the resources that guides us, and we end up alluding to those resources subsequently in further classes. So, I mean, the consequences for apathy, apathy comes to mind. We learn from the previous generations, and when apathy comes and you don't learn from history, I mean, history definitely comes to repeat itself. And so we have to think of our problem as a dementia from a perspective, as one of our teachers, Dr. Oimer Anjo, will actually emphasize in one of his engagements with us. So let's think. Action items will be think about character building in general. Focus on character building, thinking about your present, aspiring for your future also, and look at the past predecessors. Think about the core values that are emphasized across the stories of the Prophet also. Qualities of justice, empathy, equity in general, and not just consumption in general. So I do feel this is a good point of pausing, and looking forward to delivering more short reflections on my own journey of teaching Islamic history. I'm looking forward to feeding you with also any general questions and needs about how to maybe engage with history also. So if you like this, feel free to subscribe, and I look forward to giving you further inputs about my thoughts and reflections on teaching Islamic history. Assalamu alaikum.